Hey there and welcome back to Rimworld. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our Rimworld Extreme Desert Challenge. Last time we left off after giving Steak the royal title of Baron. All in all, it was perhaps a bit of an uneventful episode, but the importance of receiving that rank cannot be understated, as Steak is now only one more royal promotion away from the final rank of Count, and at that point we are getting close to being able to finish this series. Now today our main goal is to continue to build our defenses. You can see it here, stage 1 has slowly taken shape over the course of the last episode, and today we are hopefully going to make some progress on the equally ambitious stage 2. However, before we can fully focus on construction, we first have to focus on combat, as the steakhouse is once again under attack. After the relatively threatless last episode, I was more or less expecting this. A mechanoid drop pod attack is among the last things I wanted to see though, especially not one that drops right in front of Pollyanna. But it is here now and it is thankfully not too sizable, so let's man our defenses and hope that Pollyanna can quickly flee into safety. Now, it looks like Pollyanna will get away unharmed while Edmo and Jake are putting on some combat gear. I think we should have just enough time for them to do that, especially since we are using Alistair here to lure our enemies around our kill box first. He will then of course eventually retreat, but this buys us a few more seconds. Troy meanwhile has equipped some EMP grenades and will now hopefully be able to stun a good amount of enemies right at the entrance of our kill box, and that is also where we have stationed most of our colonists, including Edmo, who is manning the choke point. His marine armor should offer him good protection, and we're also not fighting too many melee enemies here. His bionic arms meanwhile offer a slightly increased melee damage output, so all things considered he is pretty well suited for this task. Now at this point you can see we are focusing our fire on one lone lancer, arguably the most dangerous enemy in the kill box at the moment, and unfortunately also able to land a hit against Steak just seconds before we take it out. Edmo meanwhile has not caught a single scratch yet and actually engages in melee combat now. At this point though the fight is very close to being won. Troy and his EMP grenades have certainly helped out a lot. Taking a look at Steak, however, the situation is far more dire, because that Lancer has not only injured him, it actually took off Steak's entire left leg. So while our colonists are quickly taking out the last already injured Lancer here, Steak is hobbling his way to the hospital, where his wife Red Hawk can't really do much more than to stop the bleeding. His leg meanwhile is gone for good. Now, luckily, we are already at a point in the game where we can fix that rather easily, so just a few moments later, Edmo is taking to the fabrication bench to make a bionic leg. Still, with barely one day behind us, let us not hope that the episode continues this way, and we do in fact have some good news shortly after, as a new donkey foal sees the light of day. It is also a female, and considering that our other female donkey Froome is starting to get up there age-wise, I think we are going to keep it, which means it needs a name, and as usual we're going to the list of patrons in the naming rights tier and above for this, and the name that was randomly chosen is the name of patron Stephrex, so congratulations and welcome to the steakhouse. Now, during an otherwise uneventful evening of harvesting, repair work and construction, we suddenly have two things happening at once. The first being the arrival of a group of visitors, the second a fist fight between Jake and Carl. And in the hopes of avoiding major injuries, I was actually sending Red Hawk over to make an arrest here, but in the time it took her to get over here, the two of them had already settled their grievances. And luckily none of the injuries seem to be too severe, so instead of making arrests we can administer some medicine, which I believe is a much more suitable task for Red Hawk anyway. Around midnight then, Edmo finishes Steak's new bionic leg, but the operation will have to wait until the next morning. What we can do in the middle of the night, however, is to trade with our visitor, who will receive a few packages of flake and a few old clothing items in exchange for 3 components. On the following morning then, Steak makes his way over to the hospital and Red Hawk arrives on the scene soon after. I think it's only fair that she gets to be the one to take care of this. And unsurprisingly, and like many others before, the operation is a full success. So, our colony founder is now also among the bionically modified members of the steakhouse. I will admit, I actually never had any plans for him in this regard, but considering the alternative, I doubt he would complain about this. And maybe it's also not the worst thing in the world that we had a few test subjects before him. Now, for the next few hours, nothing too exciting happens. One by one, our patients are slowly clearing back out of the hospital. But other than that, the steakhouse is back to their usual business, making flake, cutting stone blocks, building defenses, cooking meals, all of that good stuff. And so, as another night sets across the desert, we are once again receiving some visitors, and they also once again have something to trade. Unfortunately though, it's nothing that we have any use for, so in the early morning hours we are simply exchanging some flake and an old pair of pants for some silver, hardly Red Hawk's most exciting trade. The rest of the morning is spent with fieldwork, repairs, disassembling mechanoids, again nothing too eventful, at least until Edmo once again gets creative in the afternoon. He is currently in the process of assembling a field hand, basically the plant working equivalent to the drill arm, and as a matter of fact, this is the first of two that he will be making. You can probably already guess who's going to receive it, but the productivity increase we saw on Alistair definitely impressed me, and this might free up one or two of our field workers to take care of other work, and especially with our still ongoing defensive construction efforts, there is definitely a lot of that. Now, a little later in the evening, we then have the next problem to worry about, as the steakhouse is once again struck by a heatwave. However, I think we have learned our lesson since the last one. Both our stables as well as our freezer are equipped with proper cooling, and our colonists are also outfitted in a way that shouldn't cause any problems. And so the night passes by, a little hotter than usual but otherwise uneventful, and on the next morning we have some good news waiting for us, as Troy finds another underground steel deposit, and this one is actually right next to our base. That also means we can easily hook it up to our power grid without the need of hauling batteries back and forth, and despite the fact that we have roughly 2,500 units of steel left in storage, we will start mining right away. A short while later then, Edmo also finishes the second field hand, and so it is now time for its installation. And the more or less lucky recipient will be none other than Red Hawk, who is currently sporting a plant working skill of 17, which already makes her the steakhouse's most competent gardener, and we have seen it with Alistair before, these upgrades will boost her skills to a whole new level. And in Pollyanna's careful hands, both operations are a success, and you can see it here, both field hands offer a 160% bonus to plant working speed, so in just a few hours Red Hawk will be sowing and harvesting like an absolute machine. In the early evening then, Troy makes us a bit more kibble. Red Hawk's anesthetic also wears off a few hours later, but she is not quite in the clear just yet, as the remnants of that anesthetic have caused her a mental break, and so Red Hawk will now be wandering around dazed and confused. Thankfully though, the situation quickly resolves itself, and so Red Hawk joins her husband Steak in bed, and we can watch another night pass by. During that night, Pollyanna then also finishes the first stage of our kill box, so on the following morning work continues to the left of it, where we are now constructing that last bit of wall to finally close in the steakhouse completely. And for the first half of the day, that is also the most exciting thing that happens around the base. In the early afternoon, we are then following things up with the construction of a few sandbags, and a short while later, right after Jake has another unsuccessful go at Red Hawk, we are visited by a trade ship, so let's see what they have to offer. Once again though, the exchange is rather simple, I think. We are selling flake and receive advanced components as well as nutriamine, just so that we can continue to make a bit more proper medicine, which is definitely going to be necessary if we want to continue modifying our colonists. As the day then winds down, you may have also noticed that we are slowly starting to get low on rice, so we may have to build a few more hydroponics basins soon, but considering our steel supply, which has sneakily grown by over 1,000 units since we last talked about it, I think that shouldn't be an issue. Efficiently working those hydroponics basins should also no longer be of any concern for us. On the next morning, Red Hawk has made a full recovery, and we can marvel at an astounding plant working speed of 855%, so I think it's safe to say that she has the garden well under control. Now, I think as our defenses are slowly starting to come along, so should our weaponry, which is why Edmo is currently making a minigun. For the second stage of our killbox, we will primarily be counting on range, and the minigun has quite a bit of that, at least compared to the heavy SMG that we are mostly using at the moment. Now, for close to medium range encounters, that SMG is arguably a lot better, but one of the main purposes of our new killbox design is to keep our colonists as safe as possible, and I think putting a bit of distance between them and our enemies is a good first step towards that. Once again then, the steakhouse is visited by a small group of traders, and this time they actually do have something that we want, so let's sell them some flake as well as some herbal medicine. I think the 115 units of herbal medicine that we are currently stockpiling are way more than we will ever need, and in exchange let us purchase a jump pack, a very useful little item that allows us to quickly travel short distances, and as such it is a great way to get out of a sticky situation. And because I don't want to hear you say that we are not valuing his contributions to the colony, Edmo will actually be the one to wear it, not only to slightly increase his survivability, but also because we have some plans for him later down the line. During the evening then, the second stage of our killbox is making good progress, the heatwave also already comes to an end again, and so, all things considered, life is good in the steakhouse. A few moments later, we then also receive another quest that I'm pretty sure we will accept. Fending off 27 tribespeople should be doable at this point. At the very least, receiving 10 more points of honor for steak would be very intriguing. The alternative would be to grow the steakhouse with an additional colonist, but all in all, I'm not really liking what I'm seeing here in terms of skills, traits and health, and considering the overall goal of this playthrough, advancing steak a bit closer to the rank of Count seems like the more sensible idea to me. For the remainder of the evening then, we are placing just a few more sandbags. After all, the main purpose of this area is to slow our enemies down, because we want to have enough time to reposition our squad for maximum killing power. On the next morning then, construction continues as we are now building a funnel into that second area of the killbox, and a good choke point here is absolutely vital, as we definitely want to engage our enemies one after another. Edmo then also finishes the minigun, and it is of excellent quality. He has given it the name Black Buffalo, and it also has a tree engraved on it. And perhaps somewhat unexpectedly, it will now go into the hands of Alistair, because the minigun is one of the few weapons where shooting skill is really not that important. After all, the weapon comes with a forced miss radius, so its bullets will always scatter around the target point, and so the accuracy bonus from a high shooting skill is more or less wasted on it. In the afternoon then, it looks like our impending food shortage is about to get a bit more serious, as Pollyanna suffers another mental break and goes on a food binge. I have actually briefly thought about arresting her, but I think we won't do that. Not only would that rob her of the mood benefits of catharsis, instead it would even bring her mood down further because of being imprisoned, which would then probably make the next mental break only a matter of time. So I think we'll have to see how well our food supply lasts. Considering that we also still have 80 packaged survival meals in storage, we should not run into any trouble. So the only thing we are really losing here is Pollyanna's productivity for a few hours. Now at this point you can also see that we are disassembling our wind turbines. The reason for that is that we really no longer need them now that we have 3 geothermal generators, and removing them will also increase the aesthetics of the entire area, as our colonists do not consider wind turbines to be pleasant to look at. That is also why Troy is currently working on a small statue, and also why we have placed wooden flooring all across our hydroponics farm, because I actually want to increase the beauty rating of that area. It won't have a major impact on our colonists' mood, but every little bit helps. Also in the evening, we are now clearing out a large patch of soft sand that is blocking our construction efforts up here. And I don't think we need to get into the whole discussion again about how exploity that is. At the end of the day, it allows us to construct something that we would have built anyway, just perhaps in a different space, while leaving a bit of soft sand in the middle of our kill box might actually work in our favor, as that might slow down our attackers just enough for us to land a few additional kills. On the next morning then, we can first watch Redhawk do some rapid rice harvesting, before we then place that statue that Troy made yesterday. However, it looks like we still need just a bit more to make this place move away from being ugly. For the time being though, let's shift our attention back over to our defenses, where we have actually made some pretty noticeable progress. We now have a funnel for enemies to enter through over on the right side. We also have space for a grand total of 24 mini turrets on the top and bottom, and we are currently in the process of constructing a few walls that will cover 3 autocannon turrets on either side. So you can see we are setting things up for a whole lot of firepower here. I have a feeling though that there will come a point at which we're very glad that we have it. Now, after another night has passed by, I think it is time to bring a bit of action back to the steakhouse, which is why Steak, Edmo, Pollyanna and Jake are currently getting dressed for the occasion. However, it is actually only Edmo who will wander outside of the steakhouse for now, because now that we have some jump packs on him, we are finally doing it, we are finally opening up that ancient danger. I definitely do not want to end this series before clearing out what's hiding inside here, and Edmo does have the ability to make a quick getaway, so he seems well suited to scout ahead. Somewhat disappointingly then, we are only finding a few bugs who are protecting a power claw and a few advanced components, so let's lure them back to the base. The rest of our fighters are already waiting. All in all though, this should not be too difficult. This is also the first chance for Alistair to test out his new minigun, while Edmo is kiting the bugs around the desert. And well, long story short, a few seconds later the last enemy falls, so let's quickly return to their place of origin and make sure we don't get any more of them. Back in the base meanwhile, we have also deconstructed another solar panel and will now build 4 more hydroponics basins for rice instead, which should hopefully calm things down a bit. While that is going on, Edmo is making one more trip back to the Ancient Danger, where he will now take a peek inside of that smaller structure in the middle, and inside he finds absolutely nothing. Well, I think that is both bad and good. At least we can now mark this off of our to-do list. The birth of a new alpaca baby, meanwhile, is no cause for celebration. We have absolutely no plans of keeping it, and so Carl will quickly do the deed. And so another evening rolls around as everyone switches into a bit more casual gear, and I think with an Ancient Danger cleared, a few more colonists upgraded, and with our defenses slowly but steadily reaching their final form, we have reached a good point to make the cut for today. And as we wrap things up, I am happy to present to you a bit more fan art. The first one once again coming from Ada Lynn, with this rendition of Steak, who seems to be planning something. Maybe he is drawing up those intricate defenses. The second piece comes from Burak Bayraktar, and it is certainly towing the meme line, but I made an exception for it, because Burak told me that during Steak's Baron ceremony, where he crowned himself, that reminded him a lot of Napoleon crowning himself emperor. Although Steak's self-crowning was more born out of necessity, it is a bit of a shame that there is no way of having someone else take care of that. In any case, that concludes things for today, so as always, if you enjoyed the episode, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course do that, for example by subscribing to stay up to date, by grabbing some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or by checking out and maybe even pledging to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.